This meeting is being recorded.
Aloha. I am so happy to see you, Lydia, Noor, and all our guests today. And it's going to be a great day. Lydia is so positive and bubbly and happy, and I'm just so happy to meet her and happy to bring her here to you. Lydia, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your story?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Aloha. So beautiful to be sharing a little piece of your beautiful island today. So I have a long history in the health and wellness sector. I worked for 25 years as a registered dietitian. And I had a really interesting career, which culminated with working in media. So I got to spend a lot of time working on the stage, not so much live stage, but TV, radio, print, sharing messaging around health and wellness and well-being. And I loved it. I loved it for two reasons. I loved it because, I'm a big believer of healthy living. And I felt it was important to share what I could in terms of my knowledge with other people. And I really love engaging, and I love engaging in a live way. So it really touched upon a lot of things that I liked, using my voice. And over time, though, I started feeling there's something a little bit missing for me in terms of the messaging. It's not feeling quite as authentic as I want it to feel. I think there's a more important message that I'm meant to be sharing. And so I was married for 20 years to a wonderful man named Mike. And, we had a good relationship. And I was able to say, these are the things I'm sort of noodling with in my head. I'm struggling a little bit. It's not you. It's not the life we've created, because that's all amazing. I know I have choices. I feel a bit guilty even owning the fact that I'm struggling a little bit. And he'd say, you know what? He had two things he'd always say to me. Just do what makes you happy. Whatever that feels like, just do what makes you happy. I don't care if it's you're working 3 jobs and balancing a family, or you're working no job. I don't care. Just do what makes you happy. So I'm like, okay, well, thank you. Then he gave me permission to explore. And the other thing he'd say, which was even more powerful, is he would say, don't spend so much time figuring out what that thing is. Just try and be more present. Be more present, be more in the moment. And I'm like, okay. And I appreciated that, and I envied that, because he was really, really good at being present. But now I'm watching him in his own career, and he's taking off. He's the president of a young company, and he's building the business, building the team, traveling a ton. So he's, all over the map. North America, China is where their core business is. And over time, I'm watching the toll that the travel's taking on him. I'm seeing him age literally, in front of my eyes. And we had this check-in point. We'd always say, are you okay? Are you good? Are you happy with where things are at? And which is why I felt free to be able to have that conversation I'd had with him, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm doing good. But he said, it's a grind. But, it's probably the next 1.5 to 2 years of this kind of pace, and then it'll settle in. So one day I'm dropping him off at the airport for a 5-day whirlwind trip to China. And I'm feeling kind of heavy in my heart, because he's got multiple cities that he's visiting over this 5-day span. And I say this to him as I'm dropping him off. I said, I'm worried. I really don't like the fact that you have to be keeping, this type of pace. He said, it was a Sunday afternoon. He said, I'll see you on Friday. It's okay. And 3 days later, I got a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning with word of his passing. So overnight, I was widowed without warning. And, as I mentioned to you, I saw signs of what the lifestyle was doing to him in terms of aging him. I was witness to his, very happy in the moment spirit sort of waning a little bit, becoming a little bit more melancholy, a little quieter over time. And I could sense a shift. And so when I got this news, of course, it was absolutely devastating, but not altogether surprising. And I remember, because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, thinking, well, this is my pragmatic side, thinking I'm not going to wake anybody up right now. I just need to sit with this and digest it and just sit with it, really. And so I crawled over to his side of the bed, and I wrapped myself up in his covers, and I could just feel this connection to him. And all of a sudden, this overarching, and I mean overarching, sense of gratitude and love came over me. And I was just flooded with memories of what we had built together as a couple, as a family, the conversations that we had shared, those emotional, poignant moments of all that we were to each other. And I felt so grateful. And in that moment, I realized, okay, hang on here. Just a few short months ago, you were having this conversation with him about feeling unsettled. Something's missing from within for you. And all of a sudden I'm overcome. My cup is running over. And I realized that there's something bigger at work in my life here. And I really believe that his passing was meant to be my spiritual awakening. And recognizing that, obviously you're dealing with the grief and the devastation and the shock and the planning and everything that goes along with the grief. But really very, very soon in, I knew that I would be okay. I knew that I would have a multitude of people supporting me in the early days. And I knew that at some point, everybody's lives go on, and you got to carry on now in this new life that you have as a sole parent and as a widow. But I knew that I'd be okay. And I knew that it was because I was connecting to something bigger than myself. And so my process moving forward, and your podcast is about grief and happiness. And I really feel it's important to share just this light that I felt within me. There was a lot of dark, heavy times, but I was always, I'd had a taste of what spirit and energy and something bigger than me felt like. And it was just that beacon that I kept reaching for, in my days moving forward. And so I'd read about, connecting to your departed ones and looking for those signs that they are still in your life. And, I've listened to some of your other podcasts, and I love, the butterflies and the red balloons, and, and I love, finding humor, which we had so much laughter and humor in our home. And that was a really important thing to keep alive in our house. And to this day, it's been 9 years, and my girls have a running list of things that their dad used to say, because he had all these quirky sayings that nobody knows where they came from, but they have this list called things Papa used to say. And we pull them out. And even now, like 9 years later, like new ones will come up. They'll say, "Oh yeah, do you remember that one?" And they'll message each other and say, "Is it on the list?" So, we keep those silly little fun things alive. And it's a great way to honor, and also just to smile and laugh, because, when people lose someone, I think they feel this need to stay stuck in this heaviness. It's not okay to smile. It's not okay to feel okay. It's not okay to laugh, but it is so okay. And, we always hear it said, what would your loved one want you to do? How would they want you to move forward? In sadness and heaviness, feeling weighed down? No, of course not. And so I remember getting up at his funeral and speaking, Emily, and I said those very words. I said, when you think of Mike, what do you do? And I remember seeing somebody in the church saying, they smiled. I said, that's right, you smile. Because every moment with him was a light one, a funny one, a humorous one. So, I went on to say some things and share memories. And then I finished off by saying, so when you think of Mike, think of him with humor, and think of him with light and with a smile on your heart, because that's who he was when he was in your presence. So just do it, honor him that way. So I think, finding that light for myself and chasing those opportunities to both connect, and then also just get quiet and still and pay attention to what was coming to me in those really quiet moments, something really profound happened for me. And this was really my true aha happiness moment. And it was one day when I was sitting just quietly in nature. You're every day, you've been through this, so you're caught between going back and thinking about what was, and you're also feeling angst about what's to come, the unknown. And I remember one day sitting quietly in nature and, just watching the water and getting lost in it. I was in a very meditative state. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I'm completely at peace. And I wasn't stressing, over what's yet to come that I don't know. And I wasn't sitting in the past dwelling in it. I was completely peaceful. And I said to myself, oh my goodness, that has been the missing piece all along, my inner peace. And for me, inner peace is a direct equation to happiness. I equate happiness and inner peace as the same. Everybody's got different, you've got joy and you've got excitement and you have different, variations of happiness. But true happiness for me comes in the form of inner peace. And right then and there, I realized that's what he meant when he said, just be present. When you're sitting in presence and you're not doing anything else, you're peaceful. You're completely peaceful. And so I took that notion then of nourishing your inner well-being and bringing practices into your life that nurture your soul so that you can find that place of peacefulness and happiness, and so that you can live in a way that feels really whole to you. I took that message to the stage, so I just broadened that message that I spoke on before, which was about physical well-being and nourishment of the body. And now my message really centers more around nourishment of body, mind, and specifically soul.
Wow. What a beautiful story. I absolutely love this. It really triggered a lot of emotion here for me. What a great way to live. I know that my husband, Ron, really taught me about focusing on the moment, because I wasn't there before I met him. And by being with him, I recognize the value of it and the beauty of it and the joy of it. And as hard as the things were that we went through with him physically, with things that were going on with him, we could always still smile at each other. We always could still have that soul to soul connection that I still got, you know. He died 4.5 years ago, and I still feel that, because it's it's so important. Once you get that, once you understand the value of being present and the value of paying attention. I think so many people go through the world on autopilot that they don't get that. And it's a matter of, to me, it was waking up. When you can do that, it's like, oh, I can exhale, you know, I can breathe, I can smile.
Yes, exactly. And I think, you know, you're right. We do go through life on autopilot, and you do it, I do it. We all fall back into, you know, we're human, right? We all fall back into those things. And so when I go out and speak to people, it's and try to make it create a relatable moment, because not everybody's gone through grief. Not everybody understands that part of the journey, but people do understand feeling stuck or not being able to move forward or not feeling like they're living a life that feels authentic to themselves. And so, you know, I try and equate it to something that feels more tangible and relatable that they can grab hold of. And so the way that I show people the best way of stepping into really living authentically, and my program is called Discovering Y.O.U, Your Own Uniqueness. It's about aligning with the things you value, like really, really grabbing hold of what you value. And so I'm gonna use the example just as a reference point. You know, I mentioned that I've always had a background and an interest in health and well-being. And I still do, but now my definition of that is much broader. It encapsulates, you know, nurturing your soul as well. So the well-being of your mind and your emotional states and your spiritual well-being. I mentioned that I like to connect with people. That was why that, you know, working from a stage was such a sweet spot for me. But now I've also established a connection through my experiences with something I can't see. And so I really work on nurturing that relationship as well. So it's really understanding the things that light you up, that make you feel whole inside and healthy and happy, because the more you can integrate those things into your life, you know, the better you show up for yourself first and foremost, and then for everyone around you. So it's really about, you know, the message ultimately is still about promoting health and well-being, but there are so many different ways that we can, you know, do that for ourselves, and a lot of ways that people just don't even think about. And sometimes it does take a really pivotal life moment for you to just wake up, as you say, and realize, oh my goodness, this is what was missing in my life. So, you know, I believe everything happens for a reason. I know a lot of people don't like hearing that. I do. And I do believe what happened in my particular case was very divinely timed. I know that because I just had that conversation not long before about really struggling with my inner happiness. And then I had to go through this experience for me to be able to wake up that quickly and feel gratitude and see, you know, something bigger at work in my life. That was all very divinely timed, I think.
It sounds like it. I love your perspective on this. One of the things that I see with people is that they feel self-conscious about focusing on themselves, and they think it's somehow selfish, and that's so far off the mark. But it's kind of, I think, the way a lot of us have been brought up, that we're not number one, you know, and that you got to think everybody else first. And it's wonderful to think of other people, but if you can't take care of you, if you can't find the beauty and joy in your life, you can't experience the whole thing.
That's right. And you can't show up really well for anybody else unless you're showing up well for yourself. So I think the thing that I learned through this experience and finding that inner peace was, you know, I paid attention to what my energy felt like, you know, the inner energy. And you know, as well as I know, and I think a lot of people, if walked through it effectively, would understand what we're saying here too. When you know what draws on your energy in a positive, or what brings positive energy and good karma, good vibes, good juju into your life, and you know what sucks the energy out of your life. And so you really, if you can learn to navigate, you can't always control situations that you know don't maybe deplete your energy a little bit, but you can set boundaries for yourself, and you can learn to say, okay, I'm going to limit the amount of exposure I put myself, you know, in front of these things that really deplete my energy. Or if it is not within your control, let's say it's in the workplace or something, then you need to, again, establish those things, align with those things you value, that can replete that energy and really help you, sort of re-energize your soul. So, it's a work in progress. It's not a forever, it's not one of those things where you just arrive and you're there. But the more, it's like any habit, right? The more you integrate these things into your life, they just become a part of your being. And yes, I've had that very conversation, Emily, with people about, so help me understand here. So it's all about you first. Yeah. And I said, it's all about nurturing my well-being first. Yes. And it is about self-preservation. Yes. So I guess, if it, by your definition, that means it's all about you first. Yes. Right. But it's not about ego at all. It's about just nurturing every facet of my well-being, the same way someone else pays attention to, their fitness and everything they put in their mouth to take care of their physical well-being. Well, I'm just taking a bigger, more of a holistic approach to my well-being.
Yeah, it's like that thing that we've all heard about, putting the oxygen mask on you first, because if you don't do that, you can't do anything else. You can't take care of anybody.
Precisely.
You can't experience any more joy or do anything positive that you'd really like to do if you don't take care of yourself. So self-care is just vital. And if you recognize that something is sucking energy away from you, then don't put yourself in that position,
Right on. And here's the thing. I think, when people get a taste of what it feels like, or just to be around people who are positive, who put the work into themselves and who really do emanate good energy, good vibes, people want that. People want more of that, right? And they're not trying to suck it out of you, but they realize that I want some of that too. How do you get there? So that's what I try and, empower, inspire other people to do, is to really find those things that nurture their own personal well-being so that they can show up really well for themselves and for everybody else.
And pay attention. I think paying attention is just so important, because so many times things just float on by. I remember one day I had a job that I thought was my lifetime career that I'd be doing forever. And I loved what I was doing, but the working environment was toxic. And I got to work and was sitting in my car and looking in where I was needing to go. And I said, I just don't want to be here. And I was really, really surprised, because I loved what I was doing. I loved the job, but there was too much negativeness around everything that had to do with it. And I was kind of amazed at myself that I was able to just resign from that position and do something else. And for me, that opened up a whole world of opportunity that I never thought of, because I thought I was going to do what I was doing forever. But once I opened that door, all this beauty and positivity just flowed in, and I've had amazing experiences since then that I just love. And I'm so grateful that I paid attention, because it's
right. I was just
so
going to say, because you were
not
paying
to.
attention to your energy. Exactly. And, sometimes I think when we get a little bit stuck, or, we get in our heads, I guess is the best way to put it. We really get in our heads a lot, and we can feel like we're on a hamster wheel, because we're just weighing, everything against everything. And there's so much information coming at us. And the other thing I like to say to people is stop and just ask yourself, how do I feel? How does this make me feel? What is the situation? How is it making me feel? Versus forget what's in your head. Let that go. How do you feel? If it feels good, yes. If it even feels, and if it's not always just a black or white yes or no. Sometimes it's an I don't know, or sometimes it's just something that's unsettled. To my point earlier about something, I'm missing something, right? I knew I was missing something. All of the ducks were in a row in terms of the career opportunities and the marriage and the family and everything we'd created was all good, but something was missing, right? And so you just know that's your most inner knowingness talking to you and saying, pay attention.
Yeah, it's so if I could get that message across to people and they'd actually try it's life-changing. It truly is.
But it's not a okay, what do I need to do? And let me go out and try that, and I'm going to figure it out tomorrow.
No,
It's like anything. It just, what, you have to be patient with it too. And you got to really, we are so good at shutting our own thoughts, and not even thoughts. Thoughts are sometimes a good thing to shut down, but we're really good at shutting down our feelings and our nuances and our intuitions. And those are the things that are really the truest part of ourselves. Those are the truth tellers. So, it's my wish, it's my greatest wish for everybody in the world to be able to really tap into who they are and live from that place of authenticity. Because when you live there, you're lit up, and you're flowing. Life flows for you, and not everything, goes your way, but you know how to just let stuff slide off your back and carry on, and you have a real sense of what's important, what you value, and what to sweat and what not to sweat.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that throughout my life that one of the things that I do is I'll be in a situation and I'll be experiencing it, and I'll think, I could do that, and I end up opening that door and going on to do it. One of the examples was when I was pregnant, I went to childbirth education classes, and I thought, this is so cool. I'd never heard of all this stuff before, and I just thought it was wonderful. And I thought I could do that. And I actually became a childbirth education instructor. That
Amazing.
was never on my list. I'd never considered anything like that before, but I was paying attention to what I was experiencing, and it felt so good. And I saw the benefit that it was giving to everybody that was there in the same situation that I was. And I thought, oh, I would love to help people feel that way too. And I've done that with several things throughout my life. And I'm so glad that I paid attention, because I was raised in a time in a very small community where you got married very young. Women didn't necessarily work, and the husband would stay in the same career their entire life. There was no changing. This was what you did. And you found a house and you lived there your whole life. And that's what you did. And so I kind of thought that was what was my past, because I didn't have exposure to any other past. And I know when I got married the first time, my dad said to me the night before the actual wedding, "You've made your bed, now you have to lie in it." And I thought, oh my gosh, what a thing to say. And I thought, he was trying to warn me, but he needed to warn me back when I was thinking about getting engaged, not then, And so because my dad said that, I thought I had to follow my dad's instructions, and I did for quite a while. And it took me 15 years to wake up, but I did. And I finally at that point had the strength to realize that I could do what I wanted to do with my life, what I needed to do, what was best for my children, what was best for the world, because having unhappy, hurting people around isn't the best for anybody else, as well as for you. And just by recognizing that I can make my own choices, I can be happy. There's no reason not to be happy, whatever your circumstances are. Both of my husbands who died, both of them were happy, through going through that whole process. And I can't say that it wasn't uncomfortable or painful, and there weren't sad times through that, but basically they were happy. They could still laugh. We could still have great conversations. And so it doesn't really matter what you're up against. You can find the joy in it. And that makes all the difference for you and ripples off to anybody around you.
Do you know, I remember having a conversation with my mother-in-law, and this is like actually when we were in Maui. And I said to her, because she'd had some challenges in her life, and it wasn't all simple. And I said to her, I envy you, your happiness. I said, you always just have this sunny disposition. You're always happy, which is obviously where her son, my husband, got his happiness from. And I remember she just turned to me, she said, it's just easier that way. Life is just easier when you're happy. And I said, but that's not a natural state of being for a lot of people. So, my point about, envying that, and it does take work, but you can get there. You can create your life and make choices that bring you that happiness and that inner peace and that homeostasis. So you feel balanced and you feel aligned with who you really are. And it really does just make things easier.
It really does. And I have seen so many people, especially earlier in grief, who just don't see how there is any happiness left in the world. Like the happiness got sucked out when they experienced their loss. And
I think, what, Emily, if we could also look at, it's easier said than done. You've been through it multiple times. I've been through it. Death is a natural part of life. It's a hard part of life, but it's meant to teach us a lot of things. It's meant to teach us to enjoy the present moment, as my husband said,
Yes.
to enjoy the here and now, because it's imminent. We're all going to face it at some point. So when people don't want to talk about it or address it, it's a given. I just had a conversation with a colleague today whose mother recently passed, and she said she felt so blessed and grateful to be a part of that end of life experience. But also, what she felt really fortunate about was that all through her mother's life, when there was a death experience, her mother would talk about, this is what I want when it's my time. This is how I want. This is what I do. Don't. They talked about it a lot so that the kids had a sense of what that end of life experience should be for their mom. And, I think that's really important. It's both honoring the mother, and it's giving the people who are making those decisions peace of mind in the decisions they make too. It doesn't mean the missing of the person is any less, but it's a natural part of life. It's something that should be discussed and in some ways embraced. And if I can just share something that it was so profound in my journey, really a highlight, and it's something that I hold close to my heart. It was after my husband passed, and I had a dream. And I always say, pay attention to your dreams, especially when they're so clear, the message, and there aren't any missing gaps. I really believe it is your departed one visiting with you. And in this particular dream, he visited me. I was living in my mother's home, though I was still living in my parents' home. But obviously in the dream, he had passed already, so it was all very real to what had happened. And he came to the front door, and he walked in, and he scooped me up, Emily, and spun me around several times and put me on the ground. There wasn't a word. Like, his face was straight. There was no expression on his face, but his eyes were so intense. And when I looked in his eyes, they showed me a love so pure, so magnificent, beyond anything you could ever experience in this human life. And I think what he wanted me to see is that he is okay, and that this is what the love is like where he is now. And I woke up feeling so grateful for the experience, of being with him in that really intimate way, so much more intimate than anything you would ever experience in human life. And for being gifted the experience of what pure love looks and feels like. And so, it's when I think about that dream, I don't fear death. I know what's ahead. And I feel so blessed that he shared that with me.
Oh, wow. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's
So,
so
there's
special.
moments, there's always moments.
Sure.
We're human, right? But there's so much beauty. And I think if we can just, the other thing I learned is, if you can find silver linings, and they are everywhere, as you say, look for the signs.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find the silver lining in the journey and see your own personal learning and growth through all of your challenging life experiences, you're living from a more expansive place. You're living with an open heart, and you are emitting that energy and that joy that the world really needs more of.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what a beautiful, beautiful conversation we've had. I know that this is going to uplift the listeners. You can't help but smile with this kind of talk going on. It's just so, it makes me feel good all over. I'm sure it'll make everybody else feel good too, that all the joy and love and beauty and potential there is in life, and that you don't have to stay in a sad spot. You might get to a sad spot, but you don't have to stay there.
That's right. Yeah. Give yourself permission to be happy again. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And with time is this beautiful healer, of course, and I know, but with the passing of time too, really grab hold of those happy moments, those humorous moments, those things about, your departed that were those highlights that made you laugh. Even if they're cynical, even if it's something like, there's that person sticking it to me, whatever it is, give yourself permission to laugh. Laughter is amazing. Laughter is the best medicine. There's no question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's fabulous. So I encourage all our listeners to go out there and laugh and smile and recognize your happy moments and all the things that you do have that you can be happy about, and spread and share that happiness. And the more love and positivity that we can have in the world, the better it's going to be for everybody. It seems like there's so much negativity right now, and you can do a lot to diminish that if we each focus on that. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So thank you, Lydia, very, very much. I'm so happy that you were here with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. You're a beautiful soul. It was lovely.
Oh,
Thank
thank you. Okay, and I'll see all my listeners next week, and I hope you reach out and offer Lydia some love, because she's pretty marvelous. So thank you very much, and aloha.